Welcome, I am Anna and I am part of the GeneXus development team for modeling. Today I want to tell you about the news that we have in GeneXus 18 in terms of modeling. An interesting thing that happened to me when I spoke to some of my partners about this presentation is that they started talking to me about what happens if I want my app to be available 24/7, for it to quickly answer at any part of the world. And we started talking about architecture. And so to try to narrow down expectations, let me tell you that I won't be talking about architecture. I will be talking to you about modeling, regardless of the architecture that you have in your system. It can be a monolithical one or a more modern one for microservices. But today we want to speak about modeling. We want to talk about what are the common features of our apps that can be useful independently from architecture and that might help us migrate from one architecture to the other. The presentation is divided into two lines. First, we will talk about modeling news, and then we will talk about some development tools for the GeneXus ID that help us develop, and it helps us with development and with performance. Now, to talk about modeling, I want to jump straight into a presentation. For this demo, I will use the plant care example. You can find that in the GeneXus server samples from GeneXus. And this is a small KB. This is a sales and purchases of plants e-commerce platform. It sells shrubberies and plants and cacti. And the interesting thing about this KB is that it is organized into modules and folders. We have been trying to incentivize the use of modules, and one of the first features that we had in the KB was to organize them. And the other feature is to look at what are the public objects that are exposed in that module. As of the 17U6 version, we now have a new scenario in the use of modules that allows us to have modules with access to data. But the other interesting thing, and this is a new feature of GeneXus 18, is that we can create libraries for controls, for files, for images. So we have new modulable objects. And in the small KB, what I can see is that even if the name of the module is business logic and it is focused on dealing with business logics, it does have some UI objects. So the first case that we want to work on is to start separating this KB or breaking this KB into different parts. So here I'm exporting a stencil that has a reference to an image, and I'm taking both objects. Now I will define a new KB called Plant Care Design, where I will start developing the design of my new app, and I will create a team that is fully devoted to the improvement of the design of this app, and I will be importing the plant care that I just generated. And over here we have the stencil that I will add to the plant care UI design module, where I will concentrate the controls library. And the other new thing are images. And as I mentioned already, in this particular version, they can be modeled. So image and file objects that are very well known to everyone in GeneXus no longer are global objects in GeneXus 18 and the KB, and they can be modeled. And apart from being modeled, the other feature available in GeneXus 18 is that we can package them. By doing so, in this small KB, we can create a team devoted to the improvement of the design of the app, basically. When we break these elements into different pieces, a good practice is to, without having an impact on other KVs, to define test objects, have interface tests so that we do not have issues with compatibility, so that we can try to test out the changes that we're making, so we can work with this user interface feature at the local level. And now that we have this KB and we have the design objects, we can go back to the plant care KB. We are going to bring in these new objects that we packaged in the plant care design KB. And we're going to install them in our KB. We can see that Plant Care UI design, where I had the stencil, has a dependency to the Plant Care UI common module, where we have the images. And if we want to install this module in this KB, we will get an error. And this is something that I actually wanted to show you because I was skipping something else. This is a beta version that is now under development. And I want to open that KB in the beta version. I am getting here an announcement saying that this was opened in the 18th version. And I say that I am interested in opening that KB over here in the beta version. And I'm doing that just to show you what happens in this case. So I have the same KB here. And I go to Plant Care UI Design, and I want to install it here in the beta version. And over here, I can see that it was installed. First, we had Plant Care UI Common, and then we had Plant Care UI Design. Both modules were installed. I want to now close this KB, and I go back to the 18th version. Remember, this is something that we're working on, the beta version. We're trying to better handle modules and better install them so that they can have all their dependencies installed, and we want to be able to validate those dependencies between each other. And now I am opening it again in the 18th version. And I want to continue with the demo. Now I can see that both packages were installed, so the objects are no longer in the business logic interface. If you see, they are not there. And in this way, I can start breaking down my KB little by little. Another tool that I have available that shows the interaction between modules is the diagram. We had our demo, and in our demo, we spoke about modules, which are tools that allow us to organize elements. They allow us to share knowledge. We mentioned that transactions can now be packaged. I can have modules that are capable of accessing data. We have files and images that are modulable. And we are also trying to improve dependency recognitions in the beta version. And that's something that we will include in the next upgrades. Now, going back to the demo and going back to the Plant Care KV, I want to know how the batch and business logic modules are interacting. And over here, I can see that I have a procedure called PC Clear, and I want to see what's inside of it. And the interesting thing is that it is deleting the entire content of the database. And the idea of this badge is to begin with the example, right? I delete all data. I upload them from an Excel file. But if I'm working with a real app, it doesn't seem to be a good practice to have a batch procedure that would actually access the database directly and delete things. If we want the access to the database to be managed by the business logic module, we cannot have a batch procedure such as this one. So let's find a solution for that. We're going to import a couple of objects. And I want to show you now that PC Clear Data has changed. And it's calling data layer clear all. And data layer is an AppP file. And that object defines an access interface. To the left and to the right, it defines what is the GeneXus object implementing that interface. So the API object is now in the business logic module, and I have a PC clear data inside the business logic, which is the one that does the deleting of the objects of the database. But now, what happens is that the batch module, if it wants to delete the data, has to access the API through the data layer, through the REST protocol. And on the other hand, we didn't actually have to configure as a part of the object any additional access. The only specific property is that this PC clear data object is private in the module. It is not a part of the interface. I will not find it as part of the services of the interface. PC clear data is private, and it can only be called from inside the module, which is what is being done here. Now, the API object is not exclusive of version 18. It comes already in some upgrades of version 17, but the important thing is that when we're trying to have a REST interface that's supported in the 18th version and in the beta version, we are trying to focus on the gRPC, and we also want to be able to package APIs so that we might have a module that accesses data and has fully private objects, and the only public objects from which we can access data are defined API objects. And last but not least, let me go back to the demo to tell you that that design team that we had that was working with the plant care design base is asking us to work with more objects. So if I go to the style of this KB, I see that it is based on Carmine, which is a theme. But themes are not modulable. They are not modulable. They remain global to the entire knowledge base. But the feature that we have available now is that we can make a save as of that theme as a design system object. And it now has a different format, and in the 18th version, design systems have the ability of supplanting the themes, and that actually helps us migrate because I can now share the design system, I can export it, and I can share it with the design team so that they might work with it and return to me, as is done with all objects, a more modern design to migrate that knowledge. And I can continue breaking down those components into smaller bits. So now the 18th version now has the entire power to work with inheritance between design systems. The tokens are case insensitive, and that's different from the previous version. And additionally, they have support for web design customization using CSS at layer. So now the style or the theme can be fully customized. And I want to show you now that the basic GeneXus design for the new KBs is GeneXus Unanimo, which is a design module that has files and has all those objects and all those improvements that I mentioned. They are all instrumented in the design system. They are applied in the design system. And we also have the GAM, the flow, and the query components that are using this design system. So you can generate a system with full GeneXus Unanimo, but you can also customize it and allow for certain apps that have a particular style to be able to overwrite the style of the other components. And that is based on this layers component technology that is being implemented and that is only available in the 18th version. And last but not least, we have a couple of improvements in the GeneXus client that will help us better develop ourselves and have a better performance. And for that, I will use another demo. We will begin with the new knowledge base. And the first thing I want to show you is that albeit we changed the design of this dialog box, what matters is the content. It is easier for us to start prototyping in the environment that we want, and that is important for us. I can choose whether to work locally or in the cloud, and apart from the backend generators such as .NET Framework or Java, we can also include all the front-end generators from this particular box. An interesting thing, and going back through the criterion of Microsoft for the .NET platform, the generators were renamed, and the .NET generator is the one that we knew before as Nicord, and it has matched all of its features with the GeneXus network generator, which is the default generator for the creation of KVs. So that is a first impact, that whenever we define a KV, we can start working in the environment of our desire the moment that we want to work on it. And now we are going to be demoing the invoice, and I want to bring in the structures for that. And as I work on the import, I want to show you that we have just a few objects from the beginning. We have the master page by default. We have some of the objects over here. And we should remember that most of the objects come in the Unanimo module, which is a new style. Unanimo is the default style for KVs now. It has user controls, it has previews, it has the design systems. We have the Unanimo design system, which is a base design system, and it is useful both for web and for other platforms. And as from a base design system, we can look at the import clause that allows us to inherit. We can also override the classes that were defined in the base sys design system. It also comes with files that we may include for different kinds of fonts and images, domain. I mean, this is everything we need to manage the design system. And now I brought some transactions with me to show you. They're very easy transactions. I want to show you the customer case that we applied work with to. And remember that Unanimo has an impact on all components, in forms and transactions and work with. And while we generate this, I want to tell you a bit about other features as well. I think the interesting thing about Unanimo is that the GeneXus versus nowadays is 1. Here we have the 0115, let us call it. But Unanimo continues to develop. It keeps on introducing continuous improvements. And we are distributing this module based on the global matrix. And the interesting thing about the module is that we're distributing it through the global matrix. So we will get newer or more recent versions directly without actually needing to wait for a new GeneXus version. This will take a while though, because this is a test version. At this point, this is in the 120 version, and I can directly update that and bring in a new version of the module with the different improvements that I've made without actually having to declare that I have a newer version of GeneXus. And now this is generated. And the other thing that I should mention is that we not just restructured the concept of platform, and now we're talking about back-end and front-end generators, but we also made a change when we decided that we could save the design system as a theme, or as a style, and the name is the default style. So there was a clear renaming at the ID level. And then last but not least, we go through F5 for the refresh, and we will now obtain a new tool, which is Launchpad. And we no longer see the developer menu. It is fully integrated here. So you can do searches if you want, if you have a big app. Just by clicking on something, we will be triggering a lot of things and we will get that app up and running. And this is Unanimo, and this is what the new style for GeneXus looks like. Now, as a summary of the things that we have seen, we know that we have files and images that are modularizable. We have modules with dependencies. But as I mentioned, many of these topics can be tested. We also want to invite you to share in our channel. I want you to try this platform and give us feedback with your scenarios, because many times you see things that are different from what we are developing or testing, and you always open the spectrum up for us, and you really help us do more testing. So thank you very much for following us.